I often get cravings for a juicy chicken shawarma sandwich like this one, but can you even make a good one at home? Today we'll make a basic shawarma and a pro level shawarma, then put them up against each other to see which one is better. We'll make the chicken, the sauces and the essential toppings to create the perfect sandwich. So let's begin. Let's set the bar high with this incredibly quick chicken shawarma sandwich, which you can get done in only 15 to 20 minutes. It features garlic mayo on a toasted tortilla with pan-grilled chicken, pickles and lettuce. This is the weeknight sandwich of dreams, and I'm not kidding when I say it is the greatest chicken sandwich that you can make in less than 20 minutes. The single most important thing that determines if your shawarma will be a hit or a flop is the shawarma spice mix. Using crap tasting spices will result in crap tasting shawarma, and I can tell you're a connoisseur who's too good for the store-bought junk. So, this is my top secret shawarma spice mix. You can season anything with it, and once you've made it, it will last for ages. This mix is key to flavouring both of the shawarmas, but if all these spices look a bit too intimidating for you, feel free to flavour this some other way. That being said, start by adding salt, ground cumin, garlic powder, Boharat and onion powder to a large bowl. Add in chili flakes, ground coriander, cinnamon, paprika, black pepper, ground ginger, cloves and turmeric. We're not done. You also need nutmeg, ground cardamom and some ground bay leaves. Is it a lot of spices? Sure, but it's the best shawarma spice mix out there, and if you're missing a few spices, leaving them out won't cause any harm. This mixed spice should be stored in an airtight container, and it lasts forever if you don't finish it first. This stuff is a lifesaver on lazy days where I can sprinkle it onto some chicken legs or sweet potatoes for an instant punch of flavour. To make the quick shawarma, I've got a load of chicken breasts which need to be cut into fillets. Take the breasts and slice them into 2 to 3 fillets each that are about 3/4 centimetre thick. That will allow them to cook quickly in the pan and will result in juicy shawarma. To help keep things even, you can also pound them lightly with a meat mallet, which will flatten out any thicker parts so it all cooks at the same speed. Those fillets need to be coated in the shawarma seasoning, so let's make a wet rub. Add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice to a bowl with 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of the shawarma spice. Give that a good mix and then add in the chicken. I hate it when I find uncoated parts of my chicken, so I always get in there with my hands to ensure it's thoroughly mixed. When it's coated like this, you can cook it right away. Place a pan or griddle on the stove over medium-high heat and add in some vegetable oil. Once it's heated, add in a few chicken fillets to fill the pan, but don't overcrowd it. You'll need to cook these in batches and they'll take about 3 to 4 minutes per side. Once they're a little browned, go ahead and flip them over and then cook them until they reach 75 degrees Celsius. I flipped mine a couple more times to get a little more browning on each side, and this is what you should be aiming for. This is perfectly cooked juicy chicken fillets that will make for some amazing shawarma. Now while those were cooking, I took the time to prepare the toppings for the sandwiches. We need some kind of sauce and then toppings to take it to the next level. First up is these salty cucumber pickles. I know you're probably thinking, oh, I can use regular sweet gherkins instead, but it's not going to taste right. These pickles are made with salt, vinegar and water only, so there is zero added sweetness. They amp up the savouriness of the sandwich with little pops of saltiness, which is necessary for the perfect bite of shawarma. You're better off replacing these with something like those curly pickled green chilies or any other salty pickle than a gherkin. After cutting them into spears, I did the same thing with some pink turnips, and look at how colourful they are inside. They're also salty but with a bitter flavour as well. If you can't get these, then just leave them out. The last topping is some lettuce, which will help give some freshness to the sandwich. Chop up some crisp lettuce into fine strands like this. So that's the toppings done, let's do the sauce. 15 minutes isn't a lot of time to make a sauce, but garlic sauce is essential to any self-respecting chicken shawarma, so that means we need to make a quick one. This is a pretty simple garlic mayo. Start by adding half a cup of regular mayo to a bowl, then grate and add in 1 to 2 cloves of garlic. Make sure you grate the garlic very finely so it mixes in well. After you've mixed it in, check if it's garlicky enough for you. I needed an extra clove of garlic in mine, and then to brighten the sauce and give it some tang, I also added 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice. After that, it needed half a teaspoon of salt, and then I mixed it until well combined. This sauce is just the right amount of garlicky, and it has some good brightness from the lemon juice. So at this point the chicken is all done and we've got a pile of pan fried shawarma fillets. These will be perfect in a burger bun for a shawarma inspired chicken sandwich, but we're going to make shawarma wraps, so let's cut them into strips. Cut these as thick or thin as you want. I cut them just over 1 centimetre thick, which gave me satisfying to chew on and super juicy pieces. For the bread I'm using regular wheat tortillas. They work perfect in a shawarma sandwich, and though they aren't the same as traditional bread, they do a great job. One thing that will take your sandwiches to the next level is toasting the tortillas. I use a wire rack to toast them over the stove, and you just rotate the bread often and toast on both sides until it puffs up and browns. Then it's back to the sandwich making. Start by spreading a load of the garlic mayo all over the middle of the bread, then lay on a generous portion of the chicken. After that, add some more mayo and then plenty of the cucumber and turnip pickles. Finally, add on as much lettuce as you want, and then it's time to wrap. Try to wrap it tightly so the bread doesn't fall apart, and then slice into it and check out the amazing cross section. That is one hell of a sandwich. All it took was a couple of bites and I honestly couldn't stop eating this. It's a 10 out of 10 considering how little effort was needed. This is one of the best sandwiches you'll ever make. As good as that was, the pro level shawarma is even more incredible. It's got a fluffy garlic sauce, a luscious harissa mayo, and then the chicken is grilled and charred for extra flavour. In about an hour's work and a quarter of the money, you'll have a shawarma sandwich that is better than any shawarma you can buy. For this one, we'll start off by properly marinating our chicken in the best shawarma marinade out there. It starts with 1 cup of yogurt, to which you'll mince and add 4 cloves of garlic. After that comes the juice of a freshly squeezed lemon, follow that with 1 tablespoon of white vinegar and then 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. Lastly, you need to add 4 tablespoons of the Shawarma Spice mix before mixing it all together. The resulting marinade is fantastic for any sort of meat. This time around I'm going to use boneless chicken thighs for the shawarma, which gives us way juicier and flavourful shawarma than breast. These are fairly even in thickness, so there's no need to do any prep. They just need to be added to the marinade and then get in there with your hands and massage the marinade into the chicken. Once you're done, give your hands a thorough wash, and this is what your chicken should look like. Set this to the side and let it hang out for as long as you can, but at least half an hour if you want that flavour to really soak in. As you can expect, I've eaten loads of delicious shawarma in my life, and the roadside shawarmas of the Middle East are unbeatable. The food scene there is incredible. If you plan on visiting, make sure to pack a VPN like today's sponsor Surfshark. One thing I always forget to do when travelling is to tell my bank that I'll be abroad, and they always end up blocking my cards. Last time when I was in Egypt, they did that when I was out for some late night shawarma. I still got to enjoy this incredible shawarma which was filled with tomatoes, herbs and tahini, but paying for anything was a nightmare. Annoyingly, when I tried to unblock the card, my bank thought my sign-in from Egypt was suspicious too. It was only when I switched on Surfshark and VPN through the UK that it allowed me to sign in and unblock the card. Using Surfshark is as simple as clicking 2 buttons, and once enabled it makes all of your internet traffic appear as though it's coming from another place. It also keeps your account secure by encrypting your traffic when you're connected. There's always a risk that someone snoops on your traffic when you're travelling, especially if you use public Wi-Fi. So what I do is enable the auto connect feature in the Surfshark app, and that way I don't need to worry about keeping my account safe as I'm roaming for food. Instead, I get to take note of the kind of pickles and toppings they're using in their shawarma, so I can share that knowledge with you. The good news is that Surfshark are giving my subscribers 83% off and 3 extra months for free. Go to surfshark.deal/Middle East to claim the special offer, and there's also a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's 83% off plus 3 free months using the code MiddleEats. Thank you, Surfshark. While that's marinating, let's put together a few sauces that will really blow your socks off. First up is Toum, the classic garlic sauce you get in authentic shawarma. This is a Toum for Dummies version that uses a starch base instead of a full emulsion. You can make the real version, but it's way more complicated. Start off by adding cornstarch to a pot and slowly whisking in some milk. Add the milk a little at a time until no lumps of starch remain, then add the remaining milk. Turn the heat to medium and cook this for a few minutes while whisking constantly so it doesn't burn. After about 2 to 3 minutes the starch will activate, and when it thickens into a pile of glue like this, scrape that out of the pot and place it in your fridge to cool. While it cools, combine a few cloves of garlic with a little salt and some more milk or water. This needs to blend together, so a food processor or blender works best, but I'll demonstrate with a stick blender. Stream in the milk and blend the mixture as fine as possible until there's no clumps of garlic and you have a full-on garlic milkshake. Pour that liquid elsewhere and then process your blob of cooled starch into small chunks. Next, start pouring that garlic milk onto the starch a little at a time. The starch will quickly turn into a thick creamy garlic sauce like this, then it will thin out to a respectable creamy texture, which works great as a mayo replacement. Now we need to stream in some vegetable oil which will emulsify the sauce and result in a lighter and smoother texture. Stream the oil in slowly, then the last thing is to add some citric acid or lemon juice. The acid will react with the oil, causing the garlic sauce to thicken into a dip-like consistency. After blending that in, the sauce will be thick and fluffy, perfect for spreading onto sandwiches or dipping things in. I like to dip french fries into Toum, and that's a perfect illustration of what the texture is like. Also, does this french fry look familiar to anyone? Now to me, no shawarma is complete without chili sauce, and since we made such a brilliant Toum, I've opted for a shortcut on this chili sauce to save on time. I've got more in-depth recipes for Toum and chili sauce in this video, as well as tahini if that's your thing. Instead, I'm going to make a Harissa Mayo using this tube of harissa. It's a red chili paste from North Africa that is blended with a bunch of spices including cumin, so it's the perfect shortcut to a good chili sauce. This is the brand you should be looking for as it's the best one out there. I'll leave a link to it in the description box. Start off by adding half a cup of mayo to a bowl, then about a tablespoon of harissa. I also added half a teaspoon of salt and mixed that in. After tasting, it needed more heat, so in total I used 2 tablespoons of harissa. I also added a quarter teaspoon of cayenne pepper, which bumped up the spiciness even more. The last thing is to add some acidity, so I used a tablespoon each of white vinegar and lemon juice. Once mixed, I was left with a harissa mayo worthy of any sandwich. This stuff is addictive and it will be perfect for the shawarma sandwiches. The last thing we need before cooking the chicken is some fries. I'm not the biggest fan of fries in my shawarma sandwiches, but it does work and a lot of places include them. These are just some frozen fries, which I baked in the oven until crispy and golden. At this point everything is ready, so it's time to cook the chicken. I have 2 goals here, cooking juicy chicken and getting some good charring. I consider the charred flavour to be essential in any good shawarma sandwich. In a pro level sandwich, this is non-negotiable. I'm sure you've seen those photos of upright chicken shawarmas that people have cooked in their home ovens, and if you think it's a smart idea, think again. This may look cool, but you're basically turning your shawarma into a solid block of meat. You'll either have overcooked and dry outsides or raw insides. There's no middle ground. It's silly. Leave the spits to the restaurants. Instead, you can try out my shawarma skewers technique, which gives you a much better result, or today's method, which is about 50% of the effort for 90% of the result. Prep an oven tray with some baking paper and then place a wire rack on top of it. That wire rack will prevent the chicken from touching the hot pan, which stops it from sitting in its own juices as it cooks. Take the chicken thighs and scrape off most of the excess marinade using the side of the bowl, then lay them flat on the rack. As you can see, the chicken is not actually sitting in the pan, so it can char without poaching in its liquid. Once I filled out the pan, I spread a little more marinade back onto the pieces that were looking a bit too naked, and then that tray was ready to go into the oven. I've got the broiler set to high and I placed the chicken a couple of inches away from the grill. After 6 minutes, I took them out and flipped them over, then put them back in for 6 minutes more. When that was done, they got flipped and went back in for 5 minutes until charred, and then flipped again and went in for a final 5 minutes. This is what they should look like at the end, and that charring is exactly why this grilling technique is so good. It's going to impart a smoky charred flavour on the shawarma just like you'd get from a restaurant. You can see how juicy the chicken is here, and my god is this going to make an awesome sandwich. All that's left is to chop this up. I will admit that I messed up by keeping these warm in the oven while I pan fried the other breasts, and that dried them out, but even then these strips are juicy. With all that chopped shawarma, let's assemble the sandwich. This time I'm using Lebanese pita bread called khubz, which are super soft and thin. First, spread on a good layer of the toum in the middle of the bread, making sure there's plenty to coat the chicken. Then I laid on a generous serving of the shawarma right along the middle. Next went the salty cucumber pickles, the pink turnip, and then some lettuce. That gets a good coating of harissa mayo, which just looks so ridiculously delicious, and I almost forgot the fries, so I added those in as well. This one was a little messy to wrap, but you can't exactly blame me. This sandwich deserves to be messy. Of course, we have to slice into it for the cross section, and take a look at this beauty. This is what I call a grade A shawarma. You'll struggle to find anything remotely as good outside of the Middle East.
So here's our 2 subjects, the basic one and the pro one. That was ridiculously good. I had to finish the whole thing. Right, pro one. This chicken shawarma is probably the most flavourful sandwich you'll ever make in your kitchen. The basic one is perfect if you want something delicious and flavourful but you're short on time. And the pro level one is better than any shawarma restaurant in London, I promise. Now, if you're more of a meat shawarma person, I've got a recipe for a perfect meat shawarma right over here.